So Mr. Ramin Mesgarlou is world known for being the forensic networker. He's absolutely phenomenal. He has helped me as well with being part of our amazing company. And, you know, quite frankly, he gets in my face sometimes about my business, and I'm grateful for it. It can be tough love, but I really do appreciate it because I know he wants me to be a better person, and especially for my team and being part of the leadership with the company. And so I'm grateful for him in my life. He started multiple companies that have become multi-million-dollar companies that he's sold, and we know how well Opulence Global is doing in over 208 countries, and we now have distribution centers in the Philippines, Singapore, and popping up in other parts of the world. I mean, if you follow him on Facebook, he's in and out of airports. I know he was just in Hawaii having some fun. He was on the cruise ship. And so he's what you call a leader's leader. He's a mentor's mentor. And he's also referred to as a forensic networker. He's our CEO, our founder, our visionary, the person responsible for the Fountain of Life coming to the market to bless thousands and soon millions of people. So it's indeed a privilege and honor to have him on our call this evening. So we're just going to wait for him to pull over to speak on the call. So Ramin, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
Forensic networkers, opulence night to everyone. Trying to log in, but there is an element, so there's a highway 416 full of trees. We travel within, it's about 80 kilometers. I was trying to beat that, and I guess I couldn't beat it. So I was about 11 minutes late to get on the call. And after that, I was just struggling to get off the 401 to where the reception actually starts.
Right.
In any event, a couple of things. I heard that the ship is bigger than Titanic. Actually, the proper measurement, I was told, is that 4 Titanics would fit in the ship. 4 of them.
No way. Wow.
That's how big it is. Number one. Second part is you mentioned I opened multiple companies. Well, that's not also accurate. I only opened one called Opulence Global. The rest, I was a soldier just like everybody else. And I was a master distributor with the last 2 that I was with. But I've never started a company other than this one. And thank God we're at it now. I put a post on Facebook. I saw somebody today and said, man, you have not changed at all, because he was part of us in 2005. You still look the same, he said. I said, you must be blind. So I took my picture from the 2005 and I put my picture today side by side. I know, look, you see that happen in presidents, right? Doesn't matter, even the presidents of the countries. You see what happened to Obama, what's happening to Trump. And, you know, when you run a corporation, there's a lot of, your stress is 24/7. It's 24 hours a day. And it takes a toll on you. That's why I miss being on the field. I miss being a soldier because, yeah, you work hard, you play hard, you shut down, you have those options to do. When you run, because I do have a job, although I am self-employed, but it's a job. I don't get, so I see it really does take the toll on you. But what keeps me going is the mission. We have a tremendous message, business, and benefit to bring to the world. And what we need to do is take our people to be as efficient as they can be, to be able to bring this message to the world. Of course, when we do that effectively, I call it become a greatest storyteller you can be, then we make a lot of money. One of the main things I see that people struggle with these days, especially the high-tech people, is that they forget that there is a human element in MLM that high-tech will never replace, never. We tend to take the exceptions that we see on the internet or some company where somebody built it all online, right? So then That is a fractured story. It's a fractured story because, yeah, I know people who made a lot of money online, and guess what? They had big checks, and then it died. Then they didn't have any checks. So the whole idea of MLM is not to cash a big check. The idea of MLM is a business that can provide you a living for the rest of your life. I'm proud to say 13 years, we got people making money with us for 13 years. And so I want to talk about those basics of the business. And the basics of the business is simplicity, because simplicity duplicates. And there is another basic of the business that you cannot replace with anything. You cannot replace with technology. You cannot replace with software, social media. You cannot. You know what's called? Input. Input. Input is a forensic term for effort. I wrote in one of my quotes, input is a cure-all. It's a cure-all. You don't need to be great. You don't even need to be good. Just work like hell, right? Now, when you, and you can be successful. Now, when you increase your skill level, then you may not have to work as hard, but you can never, doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how big is your ego, you cannot get away with input. You have to put that in. The biggest thing you need in MLM, because you know what? People tend to get very fancy. You see that happen in MLM, you see that happen in sports, you see that happen with everything, where somebody is more interested in being fancy than they're doing things right. And in MLM, if you want to make a lot of money, you need duplication. For duplication to happen, you need simplicity. And what you also need is start the culture properly. Lead by example. I'm here to tell you, if we are not doing the basics in MLM, some people will come in particular company that is selling some type of not tangible products, website, whatever, some type of thing that only lasts a year or two. There are people go make a ton of money doing that, and every 2 years they change companies. In true MLM, many of them, by the way, illegal pyramid schemes. In MLM, it's not about that slick guy who understands technology. It's not, we get some of those, that's great, but it's not about them. You know what it's about? The Amway style, the little towns around the world. It's the person who understands there is a product they can market. And when people buy their story, buy the product, they'll make money. And if they can get more people to tell more stories, right? Simplicity, and they can get a residual on that. One thing you absolutely must, this is a lot we can talk about tonight, but the one thing you must absolutely, leaders, listen up, wrestle down, you must implement in your team is respect for the next event. And I'm not just talking about setting up the next event, because you know what? In this company, you guys are very fortunate company. We do most of the work with that, which is very unique, because before this company, I never saw, other than the annual convention, I never saw the company do anything. Here, every meeting in Toronto down at our head office, every time we do major things, we're involved in it, because I'm a distributor at heart. But here's the thing. You must, let's say with respect, means that you can go ahead and get a hotel room. You can bring in a qualified person in, but if you didn't spend the last 4 to 6 weeks promoting the hell out of this event, if you're not the first person that bought the ticket, flashed it, showed it to people, pressed your front line and second generation sparks, press them, daily. Why aren't you? Have you bought your ticket? No. What do you mean no? Why not? If you're not doing that, guess what's going to happen? You're not packing up the room. You're not filling up the seats. And that's a culture that's duplicating your team. And the meeting, because it's the most simplistic to duplicate. If the meetings are not filled, if the conference calls or webinars or Zoom calls are not filled, your business is struggling to grow. If we cannot duplicate the most basic part of MLM, which this is where the stories get told, on Zoom calls, in live tours, in Super Saturdays, if we can't do the most basic parts of that, then enjoy your products. You'll make some money. You're never going to have enough traction to make a lot of money. Because meetings, Zoom calls, it's a support system. It is what keeps your business going without you. In absence of having a culture where everybody relentlessly cast in stone without any hesitation, unheard of to miss. If you don't have this type of culture about the weekly events, the monthly events, major events, conventions, cruises, you're going to struggle. Guaranteed, you're going to struggle. Because there's many reasons. We can talk about 10 different reasons why. But one of them is, very first thing you need to establish when you start a market or team is that you need to establish a support system. A support system doesn't mean you, first of all, includes you, but it doesn't mean just you. A support system means a self-functional system that provides support with or without you. And that's the Monday night call, the Tuesday night call, or Sunday night opportunity call, or Saturday afternoon training, or on Wednesday live tours, or Tuesday live tours. Those things move on with or without you. And when you have those things and people coming in, now you got a self-functional business. And the minute your business becomes self-functional, you start seeing duplication, you start seeing growth and real residual income. Real residual income. Remember, the residual income comes from a lot of people doing a little bit. So how do you duplicate your effort to a lot of people? I see some leaders, the way they talk differently, but the way they run their business is as if it's about the next LA. It's about the next package. As if that next package, next whatever, it's going to get them massive residual income. And once they get them in, they're still having a flaw with their system that they're using. You know, system is not what the company puts up, because company has those systems and it's there, but a system is only applied when a culture in the team dictates and mandates that it must be applied. The company can put out all the systems in the world. If you're not on those calls, if you're not screaming those calls, if you're not doing those calls, if you're not talking about those calls, if you're not pressing people who did not get on those calls, if you're not telling the new people who launched tonight that they must get on those calls, if you're not training how to get on those calls, your system is not being applied. So simply put, you want to make massive residual income. If you want to replace your job, you need a system, which in this company we do have. Then you have to implement that system within your team. very rarely, it happens. I was one of them, but very rarely your team will deviate from whatever you're doing and go beyond you. Happens, but rarely goes beyond you to tap in. So even if you're doing something wrong, rarely somebody in your team goes around you does it right. It happens, but it's rare. So, but if you do the right thing and you teach the right thing and you press the people who are not doing the right thing, if you're talking about it, if you're yelling about it, not yelling at people, talking basically, speak loudly, coach loudly, talk loudly, do loudly, be visual about it, and that will duplicate. And more people in your team become visual, loud, start doing the system, and that will duplicate. And now you have the culture in your team of duplication, culture of events, culture of calls. That's when you have 200, 300, 400 people. That's when you have a system that's working for you, making you money without you. When somebody says I do 10 calls a day, that's fine. We all have to do that in the beginning. But if you do the same thing 2 years from now for the same people, you have utterly failed. Utterly failed. Not only you're not duplicating yourself, guess what? You know why you have to be on? Because when you're not on, nobody gets on. Where is the culture of events? Where is the duplication? People shouldn't get on because they want to listen to a boss. People get on regardless on who is on the call, because it's a culture, much like a religious holy place, a church, a mosque, something. You show up regardless of who's on the stage talking. That's something that you do. And you do because it provides you, especially it keeps you close to the shore. It keeps you, if you don't stay close to shore, guess what? You're floating away, and soon you'll nowhere to be found. You need that weekly dosage of connection, motivation, bonding. You need that. You're going to learn. Hopefully you're going to teach. Most importantly, because you're on, you have a culture of being on. Culture of being on. I meet people time to time, unfortunately, and I'm shocked by it, people who are sponsored by so-called leadership. And they have no even idea there's a conference coming up. No, they've been in business a month and a half, 2 months. No one, they don't even know if there's a conference coming up, a cruise coming up. Nobody cared or thought it was important or have a culture to teach them that. Remember, if it's important to you, forensic concept, wow, forensic, man, what a marvel of a system, university. If you just keep the quotes and read every day, and boy, that corrects you 50 times a day. One of the forensic philosophies is, if it's important to you, important to people. If it's urgent to you, it's urgent to people. Likewise, if it's not important to you, if it's not urgent to you, if you're not talking about it, if you're not yelling about it, if you're not crying about it, if you're not being visual about it, even if you are serious, if people will perceive it as that you're not serious because you're not working loudly, then you have a cultural issue, then you have no one showing up. Very few will show up and to these calls and events. That means your business is not even self-functional. When you're not on, guess what? People forget they're going duplication too. You cannot build massive residual income. You go to any company, MLM company in the world, you look at the people that make the most money, what you find is that they have duplication happening. Thousands and tens of thousands of people in many countries who are doing their business as a system automatically. In other words, duplication. So as a leader or emerging leader, the very first thing you need to learn in MLM is easy actually, but it's the most important. The very first thing you have to learn is master the system and start a culture of implementing the system. The hard part would be if you have to be a master closer, master distributor, a master recruiter, a master trainer. That would be hard. Here's the best part. You don't need to be all of that, especially not in the beginning. But what's easy is master the systems and implement the systems immediately from the night they launch. And once you are in the state of flow, that means you're doing it so often, that's automatic for you to implement that to that new person who launched, that new partner. What you're going to find is that you get very quick duplication, very quick duplication. That's why meetings are so good. Special home meetings, hotel meetings, that's why it's so good. It's easy for people to understand, oh, every Wednesday at this hotel, I'll be there. But guess what? They're not going to come even if there's a meeting on Wednesday, if the upline's not there, if the upline's not promoting it, yelling off the rooftop, if the upline is not pressing it, pick up the phone. If I sponsored somebody this week, I'm telling them tomorrow we're meeting, I'm going to train you, and we're going to be on the phone with each other or WhatsApp or something every single day. Get me some leads. Let's work on your MO500. We get you a list and make sure you don't miss the next call. And next Wednesday is a meeting. By then we have talked to a bunch of people and we have some guests. So that will all happen same night, next 24 hours of when I bring somebody in. I want to set the culture up immediately, because the minute somebody launches and signs up, launches their shop, become a partner, that very first minute after signing is where the culture starts. Make sure you understand what I just said. I'm going through some trees right now, Anil. Can you still hear me okay?
Yes, you're coming through clearly still.
Perfect. So understand what I'm just telling you. When you start something new, your culture, your personal culture, you adopt from the person who brings you in, starts the minute you launch your shop, the minute you sign the application form. So if you launch that night and nobody said anything about the meetings and tours and training, guess what? That's the culture. If it took 3 days for you to get that message, your culture is, in 3 days, it wasn't that important, it took 3 days, then maybe you'll take 3, 4, 5, 6 days to pass on to the next person. If nobody told you in a week or 2 or 3 weeks, well, it wasn't that important, then you'll take 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 months, maybe 3, 4 months before you pass it on. If it was that important, you would have known about it immediately. And whatever time frame you take with your personals, guess what? Most likely they'll take double of that time. So if you take a day, they'll take 2 days. You take a week, they'll take 2 weeks. You take a month, they'll take 2 months. That's just how it works. They retain only so much, and it takes time for them to digest it all. So what was the topic today? The topic today was about don't become an expert. You don't need to become an expert of anything. other than the systems and implement the systems. And this company, those are Zoom calls. It's cast in stone, do not miss events. It's simple. You're at home, you're driving, whatever. I'm driving right now, middle of the night, and I'm doing this. You do not miss team nights. If you don't have one in your city, you start one, get your offline to call in, someone's basement, someone's kitchen table. You need team nights. That is your support system. If you have to do Zoom calls, that's your support system. You can do that hourly, daily, weekly. There is no excuse here, folks. But that's how you build an MLM business. Without the weekly support system, without the culture of events, your team will never see momentum. Will never. Remember the 3 steps of momentum. Another forensic philosophy. Start, sustain, advance. Unless you start the simplicity and duplication, you'll always be on start. You'll never go to step 2 in momentum and step 3 momentum. You'll always be at start momentum. You never sustain because your people are quitting. You never advance. So I hope I'm very clear. Nobody misses a Zoom call. It's simple. In my days when I was building empires, we didn't have internet, so it was all through phones. You've heard me say this many times. It used to cost us $2, $3 a minute. I did a conference call, cost me $100. Guess what? Everybody spent $100. I wasn't the only one paying it. I was doing it, but everybody had to call in and pay those $2 a minute, $1 a minute. In some countries, $7 a minute. And we did it. We had hundreds of people on the call. Internet today is free. And you can do it from home. Everyone's got smartphones, lots of iPad. So the issue is not the simplicity. The issue is the culture. And if it's important to you, it's important to people. I'm telling you, if you don't start this must-have culture of events, then you're not going to gain momentum. So in this company, we have everything. We have all the events. We're very, very organized, best training. We have everything. But here's the problem. You got to do your job. You have to promote the events. Because if it's important to you, if it's urgent to you, it is to your people. In absence of you yelling and screaming it and training and teaching it and talking about it and pressing people on it, I mean, it's not important to you. It's not important to, it's not urgent to you. And of course, that duplicates. Do you get it? If you get it, write in the chat, I get it. Start to talk like Jim Rohn when he got all emotional or something. He said, do you get it? Because these are basic stuff. So you're fortunate enough that these systems are in place. In absence of us doing it, guess who has to create the systems? So guess what? When I was building, I was the master distributor. I had to create those systems. I've created systems here. Nobody did it for me. I did it, but you guys have to promote it. And promoting it is not going in a WhatsApp group with a message or share a poster. I'm telling you, you can share a poster, but unless you take 2 minutes and write about it, your feelings about it, telling them what it means to you, that call, that webinar, the Zoom call, that team night, unless you write about it, talk about it in a voice note or something, it means very, very little to people in the group. Again, people don't care what you know unless you know how much you care. You have to show your people whatever it is that you just put up there, that you actually care about it. It's important to you. It's urgent to you that you took the 2 minutes to write about it. And once you start doing some of this basic stuff, basic, basic. This is like MLM, not even 101, it's MLM 001. Once you some of this basic stuff, you're going to find yourself making a fortune. Fortune! So leaders, I'm talking to you 10 times louder than I'm talking to a brand new person on this call right now. Let's go back to the basics. Let's start promoting events, building your MLM business through events, because that duplicates, because it's simple, and simplicity and duplication is a foundation of residual income. With that, Anil, I'll pass it back to you. Comments, questions, we're done.
Thank you, Mr. Ramin. Yes, everyone agreed. They get it. They get it. They get it. Duplication, simplicity. Everyone's agree. I have a special request from Payman in Iran. He said he has Iranian friends on the call. If you could say a few words in Farsi to them, that was a request from him.
سلام دوستان عزیز، فونسک نبوکای شجاع ایرانی در دور دنیا. ممنون که روی این کار هستین. خودتون که میدونین ما یه اینستاگرام لایو هر ماه داریم. پیمان جان قشنگ میتونه پسترتون بده. این ماه کنسل به خاطر ما داریم میریم رو کروز، ولی یه در خدمت هستیم و مرسی که میایین رو همین کار که هست. این کار هر سه‌شنبه شب 9 ایسترن تایم که وقت تورنتو هست انجام میشه. مرسی. Back to you, Neil.
Thank you for that, Ramin. Whatever you said, I agree with as well. We also have a couple of people's hands that are raised. Are you taking any comments, or you want me to open up the call with anyone? Do you want me to go ahead and do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we have
the comments.
Sure. And Payman says thank you. So we have David and Matthew Jeffrey. They have their hand raised, so I'm just gonna unmute them.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, folks. You're unmuted. David or Matthew, are you there?
Hello. I didn't
Hello.
actually raise my hand intentionally, but I just want to say for all that wisdom, and those basics are really what we all need to be reminded of so that we can make it to the billions.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you for having the courage to coming on and saying hello. That by itself is first step of leadership, to come on the stage and share an inspirational message. Thank you for that.
Anyone else would like to raise your hand to have a few words with our CEO and founder about the training this evening?
The question you got to ask yourself is this. If you have people on your team, let me press you, all of you on this call. Let me press you on this. If you have 10 people in your team, or all 10 people on this call right now, if the answer is no, then you got to go back to what was talked about earlier. Is it important, urgent to you? Are you getting duplication? Are you getting past the step 1 of momentum? The answer is no. If you got 100 people on your team, understand some of them you don't even know, but that by itself is a question. But understand some people may be not active anymore. But if you have 30, 40 people on Smart Buy, are they on this call? Why not? Because we're not promoting it, we're not teaching it, we're not talking about it, we're not showing we don't have a culture in our team that says from the day that they launched, that the cast in stone part of MO is events. Unless they thought they can come and invest and make money, which makes it a pyramid scheme, which we're not. Unless that's what you told them, They should have known that it takes 8, 10, 12 hours a week on a part-time basis to do this business. 8, 10, 12 hours a week on a part-time basis to do this business. They should have known that. 12, 15 hours. They should know that. You should have told them that. And if you did tell them that, well, these events, these calls are part of that 10, 12, 15 hours a week. If they're not on these calls, the first person to blame is you. And you have to question yourself, do you have a culture of events? Culture of respect? Culture of winning? Do you have a culture of success? If you don't do this, it's most basic, right? They're not going to be successful. So do you have a culture of success in your team? I'm not beating up on you. I'm just letting you know I want your momentum to be different next week than this week. I want your momentum to be completely different next month than this month. I want your momentum to be completely different next year than this year. How you do that is by starting a culture of events, whether it's a Zoom call, training, team nights, live tours, whatever. Of course, when it comes down to major conventions and conferences, are you kidding me? We have a lot of people going on this cruise, but there's people not coming from several countries, and I'm shocked by it. It's once a year. Once a year. Then you have to look at the offline and say, okay, do you have a culture of events in your team? How do you miss an annual cruise? How do you miss annual convention? It's once a year. You see, I've done, my history has been successful. I've gone through I've been more hardship than all of you guys combined, but that's not the point. I've seen success. Let me tell you how I started. I launched in 1990, April the 4th. I launched my MLM profession, 1990, 29 years ago. I was 20 years old. I borrowed $2,200 to start in that company. $2,200 in 29 years ago. That's like, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 today maybe. I borrowed it. That's fine. 2 months later, I got a call from the millionaire who told me to sign up. He said, go see a seminar coming up in your city. His name is Jim Rohn, 2-day seminar, $300, buy the tickets and go see him. My first reaction was, I just borrowed $2,200. So I'm going to go spend, but he said I wasn't going to question him. I'm an athlete. I listen to a coach. So I borrowed $300. Actually, it wasn't 2 months. It was about 3 to 4 weeks later. And I went to a Jim Rohn seminar, 1990. And then 3 months later, they had their annual convention in Calgary, Alberta. Calgary, Alberta is a 4-hour flight from Ottawa, where my city was. 4-hour flight. It says, the tickets are $500. Make sure you and your team show up. You know what? I showed up there with 2 full tables of people. Events. This is pre-internet days. We didn't question anything. The business plan was simple. Get on a plane, go to an event. Anything within 3 or 4 hours weekly, we drove. Anything more than that, if it was a major regional event, we flew there. It was a culture cast in stone. Let's go. You need this if you want to see success. Go ahead, Anil.
So thank you, Mr. Ramin, for sharing that. That absolutely makes a lot of sense. I remember in my career as well, I've had to dig deep to create the money to show up to trainings and events and go to see Anthony Robbins and make it to conventions. So I totally understand. And sometimes I was at events, I didn't have enough for food, but I still went. And I remember a lot of us even shared hotel rooms. We made it happen to be at events. So I absolutely agree. Our youngest millionaire, Mr. Rene Liao, wants to share a few words. So Rene, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Neil, and good evening, Ramin.
Hey, Renee.
Hello, I just want to say a very huge thank you. And even being in the field myself, day in, day out, these calls are just monumental for me as well, because sometimes, in our jobs, we have a manager who kind of, managers over us to ensure us that we're doing the right things. And these calls, even for myself, is a huge reminder as to the things, the most basic things that we sometimes get so caught up in our day-to-day activities that we kind of forget and neglect. And again, I just want to say a huge thank you, because these training calls, these forensic calls, are never to be missed of many calls, because it really does remind us of the most basic things that we forget to do sometimes. And I falter as well. And again, I love the fact that you have these amazing calls every week. I recall my very first convention, you had the forensic training. It was a 3-day seminar, and I could not put my pencil down. I was just writing nonstop. And I just hope everyone's call tonight really understood what our CEO is trying to say. He's teaching us the most basic things that the average person in network marketing doesn't understand or doesn't do. And it's just a blessing to have someone with your knowledge, Ramin, that takes the time. That every Tuesday, you could be doing a million things, but you're here leading by example, showing us what we should be doing, leading by example by being on these calls. And I've never seen a company where, the owners have time now and then to actually send messages to the team to remind us to be on these training calls. So all in all, Ramin, thank you for the reminders. Thank you for your undying support to the entire Office Global family. And looking forward to, again, being on the cruise. Would not miss that for a lifetime at all. Had such a blast. And again, I can't wait to see you all very soon. So thank you, Ramin, and thank you, Anil.
Thank you, Rene, for sharing.
I just want to see if anybody else has their hands raised to speak. We have James in Singapore. So James, I'm going to unmute you.
Now that's commitment. I know James is on every week and over there, I think it's middle of the night right now. How are you doing, James?
Hi, thanks, Ramin. It's good. It's in the morning here in Singapore. And first, I also want to thank Anil for his sharing. And Ramin, I really want to salute you for being a great champion. And I've never seen a CEO that works so hard to want to keep the whole thing going. And you've been a tremendous inspiration, And I really think that you're just an amazing CEO. We are really glad to have you. And yes, we have to go back to the basics and just implement a culture, a healthy culture that keeps the whole thing going. Thank you so much, Rami. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, James, I can hear you. Maybe our CEO has hit a dead spot while he's driving, so we'll just wait for him to come back on. But thank you for sharing, and
Yes.
thank you for being on the call all the way from Singapore. We know it's not daylight there. I think it's, what time is it there now?
It's 10:05 in the morning. We are 12 hours apart.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Ramin, are you there? Do we have you back?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, good.
I got a call that came in, so that cut off my line.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
So
But James, look, you guys, I'm proud of you guys. James is one of the leaders with Ganesh, and of course, in the Emergence group, that these guys have their meetings every week. They're heart and soul of our Singapore team. Very professional people. When I got to Singapore, I knew I was with professionals. These guys are awesome. Look at him. He's up at 3 o'clock in the morning and getting on this. That's commitment. That is one culture that they know. We don't get off. It's events that we need to get on because it's fundamental to our culture. And so that's what I'm talking about. And thank you, James, for being on here, sharing your presence with us, because it is a great listen to everybody on this call tonight.
awesome. So Ramin, it's after the hour. You want to take any more hands?
Steve, you know what? I'm okay. People can hang up and go home. But if somebody wants to share, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, we have Maze, which is a part of Team World Domination. So I'm just going to unmute.
Sure.
Go ahead, Maze. You're unmuted. Maze, can you hear us? I think we may have lost her. So there's nobody else that has their hands raised, Ramin.
Okay. Well, we said with that, let's not miss next week's call, folks. Make sure it's important. I'm not going to be on the call next week because we're on a cruise, but I'll have somebody, one of our best forensic students, on the call doing a tremendous job. Make sure we have everybody, get everybody in your team on these calls on Monday and Tuesday, and start the culture of events. And that's only time you're going to see your momentum moving from step 1, which is start, to step 2, which is sustain, which are events, and step 3, which is advance. With that, stay forensic.
So thank you to our CEO and founder, Mr. Ramin Mesgarlou, for getting on the call tonight, the Forensic Networker. What a treat we had. I know I took a lot of notes. And so I want to thank all of you as well for getting on the call, and those of you that are getting ready to travel for the cruise. Have yourself a safe and enjoyable trip. And I'll see all of you on our next call, which is today's Tuesday. Our next call is Saturday morning. We're going to have our training. With someone will actually do that call. I'm not sure if Senior Marketing Director will be traveling as well, but we will definitely have someone do that call at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, which is Night of the Stars. So looking forward to that. Please promote it to your team, pick up the phone, call everyone. Let's pack that call on Saturday. And I believe I'm going to be hosting it along with Miss Daniela Farida, from what I remember. So I'll see you all on our next call. Thank you all for getting on tonight. And remember to stay forensic. Good night, everyone.